Welcome, Autobots and Decepticons. My name is Matthew Flynn, the Gladiator of Chaon, and I am joined with Troy Pacelli, the Carton the Klingon Cleric, and Annette of Netta's Network.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good morning. How
Good
y'all
morning.
doing?
Good morning. It's a
Happy
lovely
Sunday.
morning. Yeah, it's a lovely
Yeah.
Sunday morning.
Yep, and today we are now finishing the original Ben 10 show. We're not quite done with this series yet. We've still got a few other shows and movies to go through. But this would be season 4, and I've already set up some images on Google for us to go through while we talk. So I'll bring those up. There we go. So we've got episode 1, Perfect Day. I think I'll let you say what you think of this episode first.
So honestly, this is a common theme for Ben 10, and on the one hand, I like the fact that the writers of the show do not, feel like they have to dumb down the show for kids, but at the same time, it can be a little challenging. The storytelling is not always very straightforward, so you get a lot of red herrings and medias res type stories where you have to figure out what's going on, and this is a perfect example of that, where it seems like it's just starting out like a normal episode, but you quickly start to realize something's not right here. This is weird. And unfortunately, I went to the extreme, and I'm like, oh, this is probably an alternate reality story. This isn't the mainline Ben 10 timeline. And I don't think it was until about midway where we were like, but Ben himself is commenting on that. So something really is wrong here. When we finally find out what's going on in the story, I kind of was like, okay, wait, maybe this is like a dream he's having or something like that. And ultimately it kind of was. It turned out to be very similar to the classic DC Comics story for the Man Who Has Everything, where Superman finds that he is in a coma with something attached to him that's giving him this false life to live, and unless he can jerk it off, he can't wake up. And Ben Tennyson is in a very similar situation. Also becomes kind of an Inception kind of thing, where he's got to wake up from the dream and then deal in reality. And is he out of the dream yet, or is he still in the dream kind of a thing?
Yeah.
There's a Doctor Who episode like that where they were in a dream. That's like, okay, have I woken up from the dream, or am I still in the dream?
It was a Christmas episode, in fact. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. So it's a common trope, and it takes a little while to realize exactly what's going on in this episode.
Yeah, it's like as soon as the first part of it happened, where they leave the rust bucket for the first time, and Gwen's not, screaming at him for like burping in her face or whatever. I'm like, something's definitely wrong here.
And
she's never nice to him.
And talk about a bait and switch. I thought that, because that was really the first indicator, right? And I was like, well, this could just be character growth. She has decided to not let these things get to her. And that would be a very, interesting way to show, maturity, at least on the one side or whatever.
Yeah.
Nope, that wasn't the case. It was all just a dream.
And what I really like too is when the, icky bads were like, you're in a dream. There's nothing you could do. He goes, exactly. It's my dream. It's my mind. I can do whatever I want here.
Yeah.
And then just starts kicking butt. I love that.
Yeah, that whole dream warrior type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's lucid dreaming, I believe it's called.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
When you're actually after you know that it's actually inside Ben's head, and it's all like a lot of minor details early on make a lot more sense. Like the like him doing like really well when he turns into Diamond Head and fights 6-6 and Volcanus.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there are a lot of coincidences as well, like the bus that the tires pop right next to him, and
Right.
also 6-6 and Volcano just suddenly come out of a ship right next to them.
But that's the weird thing. It's like, okay, they got a flat tire. How is that like a super emergency or anything?
Right. Exactly.
So my first thought was, okay, Gwen's acting weird. Grandpa's acting weird. These guys come out of nowhere after this flat tire happens. It's like, are these the good guys in this reality?
Even another false lead is when you realize that there's two of them, right? And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, so it's just really just it's two alien shapeshifters or something like that. Nope, it's not even that simple. You know, there's still more to it.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is, I expected these guys that are normally evil that appeared, I expected them to go down and change the tire. But no, they were still fighting Ben. So I'm like, okay, that part's still the same. So,
I did find it weird that Ben, while he's Diamond Head, he uses his powers to then repair the wheel, which I'm pretty sure that's not exactly a good thing for vehicles.
Yeah, probably.
They're supposed to have a bit of a bounce and a bit of not meant to be completely rigid.
Plus, there's no driver in that bus.
I never noticed that.
There were like 6 girls. That was it. No driver.
Yep. And it just happens to be
cheerleaders.
Well, cheerleaders, but specifically with the girl that he liked.
Yeah, Kai. Considering it's inside Ben's head, I'm thinking that's probably his subconscious trying to tell him he's like not in a false reality or something.
Right.
Well, Gwen even brings up, isn't that the girl that broke your heart? And he's like, yeah.
Well, within the frame of that particular dream, it was supposed to be his perfect day, right? So everything's going smoothly. Everything's great. He's the hero. Oh, and he just happens to save the girl he likes, and she smiles at him, so maybe he's getting another chance with her, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, and we do also see how the day actually went. Like we've got this image here of Ben being attacked by Forever Knights. Right. There is another part where he's here it is.
You're being laughed at by the girls.
That's I would imagine how the bus stopping actually happened in the real.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then of course I like the bit where he actually traps I forget the guy's name.
The Forever Knight. What's his name?
Into the dream, and it looks like it didn't work, but in actuality it had.
Yeah.
Kind of like there's a Star Trek episode like that with was it Moriarty, where it's like, I demand you give me a shuttlecraft and let me just, travel. And they actually have him in
another dream.
Another holograph.
Yeah.
Hologram.
I mean, I was thinking more along the lines of the Deep Space Nine episode where Dr. Bashir and Chief O'Brien go into the mind of the Section 31 agent. I forgot his name.
Oh, right.
Because there were moments where real people could actually enter Ben's dream, like Grandpa Max, Gwen, and Enoch here.
Right. There was a movie from the 80s with Dennis Quaid called Dreams. Was it Dreamscape? I think that's what it was called. That was very much like that. The whole idea was you can go into people's dreams and assassinate them in their dreams.
Oh, yeah. Is that the one with Vincent D'Onofrio? He was one of the evil guys?
No.
I know Vincent D'Onofrio was one like that.
I don't remember the name of it.
We'd also see Ben, when he actually turns into Diamond Head, we see him use his powers in a little more unique ways. Like he summons a giant crystal hand out of the ground. Although I noticed he never actually touched the ground or anything. When did that? He just sort of summoned it out. Although you do get hints that it's not real when, like, Gwen uses her magic to throw a trash can at Volcanus, and it like shrinks down into a tiny bit of metal.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I saw that.
It's
When,
like
when
it's
that
like
landed between her
very
feet, I
clearly
thought it
not
was just a
real.
piece of it at first. Because you don't really notice that it had shrunk down. I thought, oh, it exploded, so that's a piece of it. But you're right, it shrunk down.
Yeah. I also like. Where's there an image here? There is also the part at the very end. Okay, I'm just scrolling through images with spoilers. Yeah, at the very end when Enoch is hooked up to the machine instead, and we have a couple other Forever Night guys trying to or attempt to get him out of the dream, and then a big silvery looking Forever Night guy tells them to stop. Obviously, we'll learn more about him later in the season.
Yeah.
But for right now, he's just the Forever King.
It kind of reminded me of the Mandalorian character from the that first Clone Wars series, if you know what I'm referring to.
Wait, do you mean the 2D animated Clone
Yeah,
Wars?
exactly.
I think I recall seeing the Mandalorian that you're talking about.
Yeah, he was like a bit larger, oversized, and he rode around on a swoop bike with some sort of a force pike or something like that. Yeah, looked kind of like that to me.
Yeah, and I know that later on we will learn that the Forever King was actually a step above Enoch in the Forever Night hierarchy.
Yep. And he has ties to the plumbers as well.
Yep. When we actually look back at the different plans that Enoch has had, you do kind of have to think about it a little bit to think like that, to see that they do kind of fit in with the plan the Forever King has.
Mm-hmm.
Or kind of in like a sideways type of way where it's like not directly involved but definitely could, like taking the place of the president and getting a hold of the sword from season 2. I forgot it was called, the ultimate weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously in this episode he's trying to get a hold of the Omnitrix. And
yeah, that one was weird because it's kind of like, give me the Omnitrix or your father dies. And it's like, well, no, that's the later one. But still, it was like, give me the Omnitrix. It's not like he could just put out his arm and he could take it off it like a watch.
Exactly.
Yeah. Although given Vilgax as a villain, I feel like he wouldn't exactly expect Ben to just take the watch off of his wrist. He'd probably get more enjoyment out of, I don't know, taking Ben's arm or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So now that's an interesting question. If Ben were to have his arm chopped off, would the Omnitrix fall off? You know, because it's no longer attached to something living?
Good point.
The Omnitrix would create the EMP pulse that it did back in the first season, because it will detect that Ben is in danger and a failsafe will kick in to make sure the Omnitrix is fine. Obviously, there are more fail-safes, but they won't be revealed until later shows. But that's more to do with the fact that those later versions are not the same Omnitrix. Because the only fail-safe for this Omnitrix is the EMP pulse that it emits when someone tries removing the watch or forcing it off his arm. Although weirdly enough, the EMP didn't go off when Enoch and the Forever Knights were trying to surgically remove the watch.
Well, I guess we have to assume they must have some kind of knowledge in order to even attempt to remove it. So maybe that's why it was taking so long, because they had to be so careful so as not to, trigger.
Right.
Yeah, because a lot of the Forever Knights technology is alien.
And as long as Ben was happy, maybe it was tricking the
Yeah.
Omnitrix into thinking he was okay.
Not in danger, exactly. He doesn't even perceive himself to be in danger.
Although he does notice the watch is like acting strange.
Exactly.
Which obviously in the real world we learn that it's actually because they're trying to remove it.
Right. Although from his point of view, the Omnitrix behaving strangely is not in and of itself strange.
Yeah.
True.
Okay.
But doesn't he bring that up at one point? It's like, why is the Omnitrix acting so weird?
Yeah.
So let's now move on to the next episode. Divided we stand. Now this one is another instance of Ben randomly getting a new alien rather than
kind of cool.
rather than scanning it, one being scanned in. Instead, he's like messing with the watch, and it accidentally turns into a new alien.
See, this is what happens when Ben gets bored.
Yeah.
Every time he gets bored, something like that happens.
Although this time, Ben actually has a more positive view when he turns into a new alien. Because when he turned into Cannonball back in season 2, he just thought the alien was useless because he didn't know how it worked. But this time, he didn't just outright call the alien useless. He actually kind of tried to figure out what the alien does.
Which was actually a pretty cool one. Because, I mean, think about it. You can multiply yourself into however many of you need and take down the enemy that way. You know, Toe Pylon, which he did a couple times in that episode.
Yep. This time, the alien he turns into is called Ditto, and he can copy himself, I think, an infinite amount of times, I believe they said in the episode.
Yeah, I think that's what they said.
Yeah. And this is also the return of Dr. Animo, and he's obviously been in prison since the end of season 2. Yeah, I think it is season 2. Don't think he was in season 3. Well, apart from the future version of Animo, but that technically didn't count for this version of him.
Yeah.
And
then you also learn something interesting. If any of his cells is separated from the other cells, they can't come back to be Ben again. They have to all be together.
Yep.
Which could imply some things about how the Omnitrix works, right? Because we've always just assumed that the thing depowers, so he is depowered and he reverts. Well, what happens when you can't revert because part of you is separated? So there's more than just a power source thing involved here. Anyway.
Yeah, because on this prototype Omnitrix, it's time limit based, although the show really stretches the definition of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes. But you know, I think that it does that because I think it's also trying to protect Ben. I don't want you to be a creature for too long because it could hurt you.
Exactly. And we'll get a little more insight into that when we get to the 2-parter.
Right. But I mean, humans are considered to be so frail that the Omnitrix is like, you know, this guy, you know, this is a kid too. He can only take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We also, I was going to say, we also get a little bit of insight into the way the Omnitrix works in terms of genetics and the way it maintains it. And apparently Dr. Animo has some insight into that. He's been studying that.
Yeah. Because as soon as he captures one of the Ditto clones, he then starts experimenting on him and trying to figure out how it works. And obviously he has mutant animals with, different mutant animals this time.
Yeah.
He has a mutant seagull and a squid or a kraken, whatever the thing is. We don't actually see the whole thing, we just see his tentacles.
Now, one bit of concern that I have here is, and I don't know how much thought they're going to put into Ditto, but okay, so theoretically he could multiply infinitely. That's fine. I'm not even going to get into the whole thing of conservation of matter here. You know, where does all the mass come from for each?
Unless the Omnitrix itself provides the matter for the alien.
I suppose that's a possibility. My thought is, in what way is each one of these individuals connected to the Omnitrix? If I'm not mistaken, they have, let me take a quick look. They each have the symbol for the Omnitrix on their forehead. So it's like they each have a piece of the Omnitrix inside of them. And if that's the case, okay, what happens when he is able to circumvent the limitations of the Omnitrix? When he is able to, for example, change from one form to the other? Could one of the Dittos turn into a forearms? Could another one turn into, whatever, another one? I mean, that's one powerful alien. If you could do that, you'd want to turn into Ditto every single time and then become a whole army of different aliens.
You're definitely on the right lines with that, except not with Ditto.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, Ditto's not... I think the next time we're going to see Ditto, apart from in this season, is probably... I think he makes appearances in Omniverse. Yeah, because eventually Ben will have so many aliens that the crew making the show won't have the they won't have the time to animate Ben turning into like every single alien that he has. So eventually we'll get to a point where Ben will have so many aliens that there will be a few aliens that will end up being forgotten about or underused.
Yeah.
But that's just the nature of the show. We can't really do much about that. Yeah, and when Dr. Animo makes the he uses the DNA from the Omnitrix to create these stinkfly monster things. Obviously, they have primarily Stinkfly's DNA, but they also have a little bit of Ditto in them as well. Oh yeah, and we also have early on that when Ben's split into Ditto, he's like multiple. One of the Dittos kicks a rock, and then they all start jumping in pain.
Right.
So it kind of early establishes that Ditto shared, like the pain is shared across all the clones. Well, I suppose whatever they feel shared across them all.
Which, of course, provides a form of communication. The three are able to know that the fourth is in danger and whatnot.
Yeah.
It also kind of leads into the series or the episode resolution. If you can take out one of the clones, you can take out all of them. So it's like, how do I decide which Stinkfly I take out? It doesn't matter. Just take out any one of them.
Yeah. And we also have Grandpa Mac working on a jetpack, which is
we see recur throughout.
Yeah.
The series.
Yeah. Well, there is one weird thing. While Grandpa Max is working on that jetpack, and Ben accidentally bumps into him, and he drops it on the floor, and it breaks to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it probably shouldn't break apart that easily, considering it's made of metal.
Right.
And it's been screwed together in some places.
One would imagine, yeah.
Never would have expected something so important to be very vulnerable.
Right. I think it was really just for the gag, because we wanted the humor of him messing up what he had been working on.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a very useful character for Ben, because that's that being able to split up.
Yeah.
I mean, even like if he has to do chores, for example, he could split into however many he has to do and get them all
Yeah.
done at once.
Yep.
Although he does have the problem that it's not. I don't think it's his personality splitting, but rather like I think Ben's like working extra hard or something, because like each of the Dittos are basically the same personality as Ben, and they're starting to like conflict with each other.
Yeah.
It's like I'm pretty sure they're all just Ben. So it's like Ben must be like really working hard to like make them individual or something. I'd imagine that'd be really taxing on his brain after a while.
True.
Okay, next episode. Don't drink the water. This one is a little interesting because this is the first time we actually hear anything about like the Fountain of Youth and like living forever and that sort of thing.
This one actually confused me because, okay, they go to an amusement park and the water dunking ride, or not ride, but attraction, the guy says it's out of order, but Grandpa insists anyway. Why would the Fountain of Youth water be in the dunk booth?
Yeah.
That made no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. I think it's probably just a plot convenience thing. Like, we need Grandpa Max and Ben to be washed in the water and made younger.
The problem with that, and I think you're absolutely right, but it's like there's so many other things that are so clever about this series, you know, and things that are seeded early, and they think through whole story arcs, you know, for seasons and seasons. You know, for them to go into an episode like that, well, how do we expose them to the, you know, to the Fountain of Youth? Oh, we'll put them in a dunking booth. Yeah, come on.
See, the way I would have done it is there was like somebody would have had a vial of the water, and while Grandpa and Ben are eating, it gets knocked out of the guy's hand, opens up and like spills on their food or something, you know?
Yeah, it wouldn't have taken a whole lot more thought, but whatever. This is how they did it, so this is what gets into it. It allows us to see what Grandpa looked like as a kid, which he looks, you know, very similar to Ben. I think that's pretty cool.
And he had a crew cut.
Well, sure. If you think about what kids would have looked like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Back in his day.
Ages, yeah. We also get to see what an alien forearms looks like as a juvenile.
There was another one
like
too.
at 5 years old, I think.
Yeah, the hot one. I forget what his name is.
Heat Blast.
Heat Blast, yeah. What he looks like when he's smaller.
So that turned out into what? Mr. Matchstick?
Yeah, Mr. Matchstick, right? And we also see that we first see it with Grandpa, but we start to see it with Ben as the episode goes along. Their personality changes too. Not only does you could see a story where the body gets younger, but the mind is still, you know, they have all their memories and all of that kind of thing, but they lose their mental maturity as well.
Although I do like how Gwen handled the situation when they actually get to the Fountain of Youth and, you know, they got to take out the bad guys. It's like
4-year-olds have meltdowns.
Yeah. Just insult him, tell him he can't do something.
I kind of saw that coming too, actually.
When she first started taunting him, I'm like, okay, what is she trying to get him to do?
Yep.
And then it's like, oh, she wants him to throw a tantrum, so he just goes like supernova.
Yep.
Yeah, and that does kind of, with like Heat Blast, I think that kind of subtly confirms something, that his flames are somewhat attached to his emotional state. Because when he's like getting angry and screaming, he's like getting big. The flames are getting bigger, and he's getting like hotter.
It makes sense.
I don't know if that actually carries over to whatever age Ben is when he transforms, but when he's like 5, that does kind of seem to be the case.
And if you try to imagine the natural evolution of these characters, right? The aliens, I mean, you think about what a race of these creatures would be like. It kind of makes sense that as a juvenile, you would have this inbred into you, so that when you are upset, it's like a protection thing.
It's almost like in Smallville when Clark was learning his powers. It's like you got to keep them under control.
Yeah.
You can't let your emotions get the better of you.
True.
Yeah. I think the show does kind of subtly spread out the actual names of the different species every now and then. Because the Forearms, Cannonball, and Heat Blast, we do actually get their species name. Because Forearms is a Tetramand, Cannonball is a Arboreum Pelorota, and then Heat Blast is a Pyronite. I think I'm pretty sure the Diamond Head alien, we also hear his species name as well, which is Petrosapien. Which, if you I'm sure if you know enough about words, then you'll know Petrosapien means rock wise.
Yep. Or thinking rock, yeah. Which maybe is some connection to Geo from the High Republic.
Although I feel like Diamond Head has an advantage, given that he's humanoid and can actually move.
And can talk and everything else. Exactly. Well, it's very clear that the writers for Ben 10 are thinking through the story far more than anyone over at Lucasfilm's story
definitely.
group.
And we also have the I don't remember if they ever said his name, but this guy who was guarding the Fountain of Youth. I do recall they say he's like 400 years old.
Sure.
Because he's like occasionally drinking some of the water to remain young.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is when he goes, I can, finally, live as my age or whatever. And I'm like, dead?
Yeah, I can finally act my age. Yeah, corpse. But to be honest with you, as bleak as it might seem, that kind of could very well be what he was getting at.
Yeah. I mean, he looked relatively healthy, like when he was like young throughout the episodes. I'm assuming when he goes back to the age he should look, I would imagine he probably wouldn't die immediately. He'd probably suffer from various health problems due to age.
Yeah.
But he probably won't like suddenly fall over and die.
Yeah. Suddenly turned to dust.
Although I thought it was interesting how Grandpa had talked about when he became young again. He goes, no more, back pain, da 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 da. And then at the end of the episode, Ben's going into the rust bucket going, oh, my back, I think I threw something out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was used to the walking around as a 5-year-old. So he didn't step into the rust bucket properly. He just ended up falling over.
Well, because that's kind of how age works. You don't even realize the stiffness and the soreness coming on, and it's just such a natural thing. If you could suddenly feel what it was like instantly to regress back to teenage, to juvenile, wow, you realize by comparison what a difference.
Yeah, and we also have Hex is the villain again, except he's older now. I'm not sure how much he's aged. It's not really clear on how old he was to begin with.
Well,
somewhere around the age of 30 or over that.
The implication seems to be that he was already unnaturally aged, and something in his powers was allowing him to maintain a vitality. When it was drawn off of him previously, it caused him to age back, and he was looking to regain that vitality.
And that was something else. If Ben and Grandpa went back to how they were before, shouldn't he at the end, she's what's her name, the girl,
Charmcaster.
Charmcaster is carrying around like he's a toddler. Shouldn't he go back to what he was before? That should be wearing off.
I was thinking that too, because I think the Guardian of the Fountain of Youth said something about they'll return back to their proper age eventually.
Yeah.
I'm assuming like probably in like a couple of days, Hex will probably return back to his normal age. Or maybe he was like covered in so much of the Fountain of Youth, maybe he'll remain a child for like multiple days. Maybe the process of returning to his proper age will take a lot longer. It might actually be based on how much of the water they were covered in. Because
That
Ben was
could
only
be.
covered in a little bit, that's why he went down to 5. While Grandpa Max was covered in a lot more, that's why he went back all the way back to 10.
Yeah, and it could also be based on that same theory. If what's his name was drinking that water over the course of 400 years, maybe it's not that he's just going to revert in the next couple days. Maybe he's going to live out a normal lifespan.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, because the show's kind of vague on how it works. It just sort of definitely keeps it vague how that specifically works.
Yep.
Okay, that everything on that episode. Now we shall move on to the next episode, Big Fat Alien Wedding.
Which, of course, is a reference to My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know some of the episodes are like referencing like other things that already exist. I wasn't aware of that one.
The idea behind Big Fat Greek Wedding is it's a great one for anyone who Greek culture is very similar to Italian culture, so I responded to that movie really, really well. But my understanding is people in the Greek community very much like this movie, and it's about a guy who starts dating a girl who is from a traditionally Greek family, and there's a little bit of culture shock as they're getting ready for their wedding, and that is clearly what inspired this story here.
Yeah, because Italians are Romans, or were Romans, I should say.
That Mediterranean,
I think it's what is it? Roman culture comes from Greek, or is it the other way around?
Well, yeah, Rome was like the Borg of the ancient world. They would go around and absorb new cultures into their empire, and the Greeks had a great deal of influence on Rome as they were absorbed into it. So yes.
Yeah, I believe everyone who wasn't Roman was called a barbarian, I believe.
Yep. Exactly.
And then I think the Greeks were were put under that as well, where they were also like no longer called barbarians.
Right.
Well, Romans probably would have like behind their backs still called them barbarians, but like I think in public conversation they probably wouldn't do that.
So we've got a very Romeo and Juliet kind of situation here.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the best analogy, because we also have the trope of the two warring sides being unified by the union, right?
Yeah.
And somebody always profits from conflict, so they don't want that wedding to happen. They don't want that union to happen.
Or they just don't like the other side. Like with the sludge puppies, I think these aliens are called. Mm-hmm. Or that's what Max says the plumbers called them. We don't know if that's their actual species name. But yeah, they've been like in some kind of conflict with the plumbers for years. So it could be a...
Sorry. What I thought was funny is, you got Ben dressed up in the tux. Okay. It is an ugly tux, but still. But why did they have to have his hair in that weird side part? I mean, middle part. That's like, why couldn't he have his regular hair? Well,
because his grandfather has his impression of what formality looks like. Look at the suit that he was wearing. He was wearing a Liberace style frilly. That I don't think that suit was ever in style, So he's doing the same thing with his hair.
Yeah, and of course we have the whole reason Ben, Max, and Gwen are even here is because the groom is actually Grandpa Max's nephew, I think they said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the groom's related to Max. I'm going to assume Grandpa Max probably had either a brother or sister who is then like, who is then like this guy's one of the parents.
Yep.
We never get any confirmation of any of like the other family members, like not like Grandpa Max's kids, but rather Grandpa Max's like other family, like a brother or a sister, if he even had any, if he had either.
Yep. Although later in the season, we do get a good deal of explanation of the relationship of Ben and Gwen's immediate family.
Yeah. I've also put in my notes that these sludge puppies, these things, they actually look like they look like female dire wraiths from the Rom Space Knight comic back in the 80s.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting too is there's the
More
scene
apparent with this image.
where Gwen is teaching Ben how to dance, and Grandpa walks in, and they both go like they were doing something wrong. It's like they weren't doing anything wrong; they're dancing.
No,
It's
they were
probably
just
because they
embarrassed.
don't want to Grandpa to think they actually are getting along or something like that.
Oh, okay. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have Ben turning into at least 3 different aliens over the course of the episode. And of course, no one really takes any notice of the fact that random 3 different aliens are suddenly appearing at this wedding for seemingly no reason. Like you have one of Cannibal species, like or appearing to set the place on fire and then put it out.
Well, you also have the what do you call it, the soft revelation, right, where you think that these are just regular people, regular wedding, gotta hide your abilities and everything, and then it turns out, oh no, one side is alien, the other side is plumber, and they all know about aliens and stuff like that. So when aliens show up, this is not a surprise to anybody.
Yeah. Although I do recall them mentioning that normal civilians will be at the wedding.
Right.
But yeah, although these two, I'm assuming one of these two are related to Max, and that's like where the connection is. But they never actually say anything about that, so we don't really know.
Right, and they called Ben a wedding crasher when he was an alien. It's like they weren't surprised to see him as an alien. They're just calling him a wedding crasher.
Yeah, they didn't know it was Ben at the time.
Yeah, because they actually used the species name because they called, when Ben was Cannonball, they called him an Arborean Pelorota.
Yeah,
which tells me that the plumbers didn't necessarily make up names for the different aliens, but rather in some way gather the information for the different alien species.
Well, Ben makes up names for them based on their abilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's a kid.
And in his own words, it's half of the fun.
Yeah.
Well, there's no point in me repeating the whole Diamond Head species name meaning rock wise, because we already went over that. Right. So there's no point in me saying that a second time. So, is that everything on this episode?
Yep, I think so.
Okay, I was surprised the minister still performed the ceremony after all that. I'd be like, nope, I'm noping it right out of here.
Now we have Ben for Good Buddy, which is definitely one of the strange episode titles.
Well, of course, that's a reference to the CB culture of the 70s. Obviously 10-4, and again it's touching on the 10 motif for the series, right?
Yeah.
Instead of Ben 10, think of it as Ben 10-4, Good Buddy.
Yeah. So this time we have, I believe the episode itself is described as them being modern day pirates.
Sure.
Or some definitely not too far off an explanation as to what they are, but we have these three driving around, stealing or attacking random drivers, or the occasional driver that's on this highway.
Sure, and I love the idea of drawing a correlation between, travelers on, historic Route 66, so to speak,
Yeah.
the transcontinental highway as being like on shipping lanes of the ocean. Yeah, I kind of can see that. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
And we also have in this episode early on, I think this is the only instance of the Rust Bucket doing this, where they have to kind of press all kind of different buttons and flips different switches in the Rust Bucket to actually do something.
Well, in fairness, they never actually, as is the trope of television, you never have any acknowledgement of them going to the bathroom, So the fact that they actually bring that up in this instance, it doesn't conflict with anything because they've never mentioned it before. But it's also a sort of Chekhov's gun, because they're planting a story element that's going to come up later that's going to have a payoff later in the film.
Yeah.
There's also a point where Grandpa's like looking for the Rust Bucket after it gets taken from him, and Ben's like, "Oh, just get a new one, like the super RV that the other fellow has." And Grandpa's like, "There's nothing like the Rust Bucket. It's irreplaceable." And I expected him to touch on it's got gadgets in it that you can't get anywhere else and won't fit in something else.
But what was more important was he got across that there's a sentimental value there, which implies some story that, like so many other things, implied story that we never actually get to see, but we can imagine,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of things that are retrofitted specifically for the Rust Bucket that you can't just take out and put in another vehicle.
Possibly.
It's like, it's unique. It has all these different things going for it. You can't just replace it like changing a light bulb.
And I think Ben does have that realization later on when he does get it back.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Rust Bucket, all the technology that's in the Rust Bucket, we can assume that Grandpa Max got all that stuff while he was a plumber. Because back in the first episode of season 2, his former plumber partner Phil did mention about Grandpa Max riding around in an RV.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that would have been when he was a plumber, or when he was actually on active duty and everything. And also, Grandpa Max treats the Rust Bucket like another member of the family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think there's going to be a future episode where we find out that it's got an artificial intelligence that used to be an android that he had a relationship with. I'm sorry. Another Star Wars show.
I was thinking kind of like the
Okay, for a minute I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but then I caught on.
I mean, it would be kind of interesting if it had kind of like a TARDIS-like brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like
we
I
have.
may not have always gotten you to where you wanted to go, but I got you to where you needed to go.
I'm really starting to get the feeling that they could do a prequel series about a younger Max.
I think a spin-off show with either Grandpa Max or Gwen was actually considered at one point, but they never went through with it.
That's a shame, because that makes a lot more sense than doing a reboots, remake thing.
Yeah, that's because the ratings numbers for the original series were the highest compared to the other shows, and when it's 10-year-old Ben, or when Ben is acting like the 10-year-old version himself, people tended to watch it more often rather than the other stuff. And Cartoon Network was like, okay, make stuff more like that, because that's what brings in people back. Yeah, and we also have Upchuck crashes through the wall when he's like fighting these pirates, and he tries to eat some pizza. Because obviously Upchuck's basically a bottomless pit. He can just continually keep eating, and also keep eating like larger and larger objects. So he just thinks he'll just eat some pizza, and then he doesn't work, which I think more is to do with the species, the fact that the way the species eats and the way they work, because they eat like metal and brick and non things that we don't consider food. Maybe to this species they do consider that stuff food.
It definitely seems that their metabolism is more chemical, very simple elemental chemicals, as opposed to these complex, biological things. They're not really built for breaking down complex carbohydrates and fats and stuff like that. They change them, break them down.
Yeah. And then vomit them back up as an explosive projectile.
Yes, exactly.
Now, whether that means they vomit up everything that's in their stomach, or if they can like choose what to vomit up. I don't think the show ever goes into that.
When Ben was saying that he couldn't, just eat the pizza and stuff, I expected him to throw up normally. It's like, my body can't handle this, and just kind of throw up normally because it's something that his body couldn't digest. But then there's another part where he's fighting one of the knights, and he like eats the energy that's being thrown at him. And I'm like, well, why doesn't he do that with the, what do you call himself? Ultimate God Knight. When he throws his beam at him, he should have like eaten that too and shot that back.
Hadn't thought of it yet. Guy. There's always got to be a first time he does something.
But he did it with the other one, so it's like, why not do it with the second one?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it has to be like a physical object.
But he did it with one of the other Forever Knights. They threw some sort of energy beam at him. He opened his mouth and ate it, and then shot
that was energy ninja stars. I think they were actual physical ninja stars. They just had energy in them.
It's the difference between, and there's also the difference between pure energy and something like a plasma that's got some physical mass.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the laser beams that were being fired at him, he probably couldn't eat them, but the energy, the source itself, was like an actual physical object.
Yeah.
Okay, is that all that we have to say about this episode?
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to Ready to Rumble, which I feel like this is probably also a movie reference.
Let's get ready to
rumble. No, I think this is just as simple as a reference to wrestling.
Yeah.
I forget the famous announcer's name with the whole "Let's get ready to rumble."
Yeah, for the WWE wrestling.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is amazing. I know that since I've never watched wrestling.
Also, it seems to have a little bit of an implied reference to Peter Parker, the origin story with using his abilities to make some money.
Yeah, I remember that as well. Yeah, because we've got these two mutant wrestlers. I think this guy's, I think he was called Crocodile Boy or something like that. Something along those lines.
Oh, there was Porcupine.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the other one.
Yeah, and we have these two. Right. Yeah, these two who are brothers. And I do like the fact that they say that because they have a normal human mother, they say that they probably get their mutation from their father, who we don't actually see. So I'm just going to assume.
Right, there could be a whole story there, right?
Yeah. This isn't the only time we're going to see a human porcupine mutant or alien thing. Yeah. Oh, actually, when Ben's wrestling his forearms, Porcupine here, he spins around very much like Sonic from the original Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know if that was intentional, but it definitely looked like Sonic's spin dash.
I'm sure that was meant to be a reference, yeah.
Yeah. And he also, Porcupine also uses the spikes on him to, as a defensive thing, because he puts his head forward and the other guy just lands right on the spikes. And we see another wrestler being carted off with spikes in his butt.
Yeah. which didn't make a lot of sense because he was going at him face first, and he ended up with the quills in his butt. But whatever.
Yeah. And of course, these two, the only reason they're wrestling is to save their mother from the nondescript mob that has her,
Right.
and
So
trying to win money.
So it's the very common reversal in the story where you think the bad guys are bad guys, but they're not. They're, misunderstood, so to speak, right?
Yeah, acting a little more questionable, but in a positive, to try and get a positive result.
These characters have a story just like Ben does, right? They're kids that have these abilities and are trying to use them for. They're trying to use them for good, but a very limited good to help their mother, which also forces Ben throughout the story to continue to be self-sacrificing and responsible. That's the common theme, right?
Yeah.
Where he realizes his actions have consequences and he has to, compensate. It all starts out with he thinks he's broken his cousin's computer, and he is responsible for getting the money to fix the computer or replace it.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is these two aliens go to wrestle, and no one even blinks at it, going like, "These guys don't look human."
Well, as you realize though, going forward, there's other, mutants or creatures or whatever that
the mutant wrestlers.
That's basically what this is.
We have this guy who never gets a name. He just appears and then disappears.
Right.
And then I think there's a few other mutant wrestlers, but sadly today Google is not being my friend.
So you find out that or you get and this actually explains a lot. There's a lot going on in the world with aliens and technology and stuff like that, because there's this whole organization of plumbers. You don't know that going into Ben 10, but now that we've got 4 seasons and we've seen this, there are stories going on all over the country, all over the world.
Like Men in Black.
Just like Men in Black. Sure, that's a great
that's
analogy.
what I was thinking. I think we've drawn on that comparison before.
Exactly. So when you see something like this, at first, it does stretch the credulity of people not knowing what aliens are. There should be a whole lot more stories like this, but be that as it may, when you do find something like a guy running a wrestling, organization or something for mutants like this, you go, okay, I suppose in this world that should not be such a huge surprise.
Yeah. I also like the fact that when they actually rescue their mother, she doesn't actually see them any different. She just views them as like her children. She has, and they're the whole family dynamic is relatively normal, even though they're mutants.
Right.
I do like that.
Which leads me to believe that she found them, like the Kents found Clark, like in a field or something, and adopted them as younglings and then raised them.
Because they specifically reference their father. They take after their father. So apparently he was some sort of a alien or mutant.
Well, they don't say that directly. I think it's more of they theorize that their father is the reason that they're mutants.
Yeah.
But they don't even look alike. So it's like, did they have 2 different fathers? Is the porcupine one a different evolution of the crocodile looking guy?
Unless we get some other reference in the future to these characters, we're pretty much never going to know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's no. I think these two are only in this episode. We do see in a later show another character who's similar to this, where he has like porcupine. Well, actually, no, I think it's 2 different characters who are like very porcupine-like, but have no relation to these two. Okay, next episode. Here's I suppose a more interesting one is Ken 10.
Yep.
So this one we are returning to the Ben 10,000 future, or the future for this show.
Yep.
This does confirm that the future that Ben saw, even though it's not going to happen anymore, it's still its own thing. That clearly there's another Ben somewhere, or like an alternate Ben who will then become the Ben 10,000 Ben,
Yep.
that then the Prime Ben will then interact with, and then will obviously lead to this episode.
I also
So
noticed
this is-
that
yeah.
Ben's son is a spoiled brat, like Ben was as a child. You would think that Ben would go like, "Yeah, this is the way I was when I was a kid. I don't want my kid to be like that," and raise him differently.
But that's part of the irony of growing up. You sometimes don't even recognize yourself in your children, and you totally see Max throughout the episode like, really you don't, why is he like this? And he looks at him like, seriously?
Yeah. So this episode will be 10 years after the Ben 10,000 episode.
Yep.
So Ben in this instance will be 40 years old, and obviously his son Ken, who I'm going to assume is named after a family member, because we learn later that Gwen has an older brother named Ken, so I'm assuming that's where this character's name gets his name from.
Oh, maybe.
Well, that's never really confirmed. Although, even though this is an alternate timeline, Ben having a son named Ken happens in a different possible future as well. So this kind of occurrence isn't completely like a one shot type thing. It's a somewhat fixed occurrence.
There does seem to be things that are high probability, that regardless of what else changes, these things are very likely to happen. So it seems very likely if Ben has a son, he's going to name him Ken for whatever reason. It also looks like something that's very likely is that Max is going to lose his arm.
Yeah.
Right, because you saw that in two different incarnations of the future.
Yep.
Yeah, because we never actually see Ken's mother. We never see her, although we can probably guess who the mother is.
Well, we can hope.
I'll give you a hint. We've met her already.
Yeah, I'm hoping that what's her name? We just mentioned her earlier.
Kai.
Yeah, Kai. Thank you. Is we hope they get back together again.
I've just noticed I'm like looking at the Google screen talking, and I'm like, hang on, I've not actually shared the screen. There we go. Yeah. So, and we also have Ken meets a new friend named Devlin.
Yep.
Who, as it turns out, is Kevin's son.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure when
honest,
that happened.
We honestly we were like, as I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, this is too much of a parallel to Kevin. I wonder if he's like Kevin's son, and then sure enough, it turns out it's Kevin's son.
Because it confuses me, because Kevin's presumably been stuck in the null void since the end of season 2, which is like 30 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Devlin is, I'm assuming, 11 years old. Like how Ben and Kevin are 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And Ken is 10, so I'm assuming Devlin is 11 as well.
Yeah, you're right. How did that actually happen?
So I'm thinking, when did Kevin get out of the null void and then have a kid and then be stuck back in the null void again? But it must have happened within the last 10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
We also never see Devlin's mother either. Although that's probably something that will be very confusing later on. I've also noted that obviously we already talked about, but Ken acts very similar to 10-year-old Ben. We already mentioned. We also have this is probably more of a Cartoon Network thing than anything related to the show. This alien here looks like Billy from Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, which was another Cartoon Network show that was on the air at the time. He's even voiced by the same voice actor from that show.
Oh, there's got to be a connection then.
Yeah, I'm thinking that is actually the I think that is actually the team working on this, actually like making a reference to another show that was already on the air.
Yeah, that had to be.
And we also have Ken's 10-year-old birthday, and what Ben gets him for his birthday is his own Omnitrix.
And do we assume that it's the same original Omnitrix?
No, it's definitely not the same, because if we look at this image, this right here is the original Omnitrix that Ben was wearing, because this is still the same timeline where Ben never took off the Omnitrix.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, this is connected to that first future that we saw previously in season 3. It's just continuing on. It's just now that this timeline is like its own separate timeline rather than a possible future.
What was really sad is at one point he's telling his dad that he has a useless birthday gift, and he takes his hoverboard and it's like, this is the only useful thing I have, and this poor mud puppy is like, oh
yeah.
Yeah,
like what, I'm not useful? I'm not
yeah, we have Gwen's gift.
Yeah.
I've completely forgotten what that rock monster that the same things that Charmcaster would summon.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously future Gwen has learned how to use that spell or summon them as well. But yeah, I'm thinking that this Omnitrix, that it's either this future takes place either sometime during the 30 years since Ben, or since what we would know as the original show itself. This future Ben must have got into contact with the creator of the Omnitrix, and then in some way work with him to then make another one for Ken's birthday.
Gotcha.
But that's not actually confirmed, so we don't know if that's how that happened. Or it could be that this Ben has never came into contact with the creator of the Omnitrix, and it's just the technology is advanced enough that he can kind of reverse
engineer it.
Yeah, reverse engineer the Omnitrix and then make another one that looks like how his used to look.
What I thought was interesting is that he tells his son, no, you have 10, because that's what I started off with, and you got this one, this one, this one, this one. He's like, what, I can't even choose them? It's like, I gave some classics and some new ones. It's like, but that one's so lame. Let me transfer out for this other one. And Dad's like, yeah, okay. So the kid felt like he won something there.
Right.
Yeah. There was also a point when he's like coming up with like a list of the different aliens that he would want to be able to turn into, like, because at first he assumes he can just turn into any of Ben's 10,000 aliens, and he's like going through, maybe this one first or this alien first. And when he's actually coming up with different aliens that he wants to turn into first, one of the aliens that he mentioned is named Atomics, which right now is probably a meaningless name, but later on Ben actually will turn into an alien called Atomics.
Cool.
I don't know if this is a case of the writers like thinking ahead, or if this is just a complete coincidence that it's a similar name. Because the Atomics that Ken is talking about in this episode, we never actually see. We only hear his name. And of course, we meet 40-year-old Kevin. Well, no, 41-year-old Kevin. who, because of how long he's been in the Novoid, he's been able to absorb the DNA of other aliens that are trapped in there, and now has a new Frankenstein's-esque monster form. He still has a few elements like similar to his previous form, like the Wildmat arms and the Stinkfly wings, and then the Heat Blast arm, and then his forearms arms too.
But he also looks a lot more
yeah, because you can see upgrade part here. That will become a running theme of Kevin having a different mutated form each time. Oh yeah, and we also have Kevin's son Devlin can turn into the mutant form that Kevin, or that we have seen Kevin in for most of the show.
Yep.
So I'm kind of confused by that. I'm assuming Devlin has the same abilities as Kevin,
Well,
or maybe him turning into this is like his ability.
My thought was that he is taking the form that his father had at the time. So, 11 years ago, that was what he looked like. The father, that was the genetic makeup that he had. So his son ends up having that same genetic makeup.
Yeah.
I also noticed it is probably not even anything that's supposed to be significant, but when Ben's son and the other guy's son are sitting on the statue of Ben, it's all cracked. There's a whole bunch of cracks in it to, like maybe show the age of how long it's been standing there.
Yeah, I got the impression that they were just doing that to push the timeline along, to show that another decade or so has gone by.
There was also the fact that at the start of the Ben 10,000 episode, this statue, well, I think it's this statue, it was blown to pieces. So I'm assuming it was obviously rebuilt in the 10 years since then.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Ben still has a couple of the aliens that Ken uses. They're not completely useless. Like the I forgot what they call the alien, but the that one alien that's the megawatt from season 1.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember what they actually call that, bug zapper or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's like that's not a completely useless alien. It has some value. Although we do have to kind of consider that not all aliens in the universe have like special powers or unique abilities. Some of them might just be aliens.
Right.
It's kind of like if an alien got the Omnitrix and transformed into a human. That's kind of the whole idea. I'm kind of thinking with that.
Oh, like we don't have lame. He can't even, lift heavy objects. He can't even run fast.
Oh, it's like I got a flashback of Family Guy where Stewie was launching a battle with all the other toddlers, and he's like, "Okay, you have this; it'll turn you left. The ducky will turn you right, or no, the birdie will turn you right, and the ducky, well, it's just a ducky. Enjoy it."
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and that was the last episode before the big two-parter of the season. Although, like season 3, the big two-parter at the end is not the actual end of the season.
Right.
I don't know why they do that twice.
Build suspense?
I don't know.
I mean, there are other shows that do that as well, where they have like a big multi-part finale, but then the multi-part finale is not actually the final couple episodes.
It's like the last one. It's like the last one is like the epilogue or something.
Yeah. Buffy the Vampire season 5 did that. Yeah, I think it's season 5.
Mm-hmm.
So the next episode, or the next couple of episodes, is Ben 10 versus the Negative 10, part 1 and part 2. Here's where we get into some more of the some stuff that was hinted at earlier in the season, like Enoch, like Enoch trying to get the Omnitrix, and then the Forever King coming in and stopping them from pulling him out of the dream.
And what we
Although we do see Enoch later.
We end up with a kind of a legion of supervillains. Ben 10's version of the Sinister Six.
That's pretty much one of the things I have in my notes, is that it's very much a Sinister Six or Masters of Evil, Legion of Doom, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And this episode, so we have basically not all of the season, like we have a couple of season 1 villains that were basically forgotten about until now. Like we have the bug guy Clancy and Rojo from the 5th episode of season 1, who, weirdly enough, I don't think the main characters actually learnt their names back in those episodes. Yet for some reason, now in this episode, they actually call them by name. I find that very strange. Okay, let's here we go. Got that. Yeah, we have so we have, here's all 10 of them. So we have the Forever King here. We have his robot ninja knight. Then we have obviously Dr. Animo, Clancy, Sublimino, the Circus Freaks, Charmcaster, and Rojo.
Mm-hmm.
Who I'm assuming she has this technology, probably because of the Forever Knights providing that to her. Because the Forever Knights are collectors of alien technology, and the last time we saw her, she was fused with alien technology, so it's not too unusual to think that the Forever Knights would supply her with all that.
And again, they're thinking through, story progression. What happened to these characters in between episodes? What happened since the last time we saw them? They have a story too.
Yeah. Although there's no explanation as to how Clancy here went from, well, I want to say a normal human being, but I don't think he was normal.
Right.
But looking a little more human, to then we see him in this episode, he's a lot more bug-like.
Right.
I mean, I have a theory as to why he's more bug-like now, because it's potentially because Dr. Animo might have experimented on him and mutated him further, maybe.
Possibly, or it's just a progression of his mutation.
Yeah, because I mean, the Dr. Animo theory does, it kind of it makes logical sense when you think it through, because Dr. Animo, he does experiment on animals and turn them into mutant animals, so Clancy having a psychic link with bugs, it kind of makes sense.
Sure.
I mean, either option could definitely work. We also have we have right here at the beginning when Ben, Gwen, Grandpa Max, and a new character called Cooper, when they arrive at Fort Knox, because the Circus Freaks and Sublimino are there, or they're seen there on security footage. And when Ben gets there, he doesn't waste any time. He just sees a couple of the security guards jumping around like chickens, and then other security guards who have also been hypnotized, who are firing at them, and he just immediately transforms into an alien and then gets them out of there.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't even question it, just recognizes that they're in danger and tries to help them. I'm curious what you think of this two-part sort of season finale.
I think that it's a very grand idea. It certainly establishes some potential. Does show certain synergies between the villains. It also shows how villains don't necessarily work well together, easily pit
Yeah.
against each other. But I think overall, even though it's meant to be a grand two-parter, I think the most important part of it is fairly small and mundane. It winds down the season and really the whole series to lead into the last episode.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I take from it.
Yeah. And we have the Forever King, who, like I said before, is a former plumber.
Right.
Yeah, here he is. Yeah, he's a former plumber named Driscoll. Now, Grandpa Max mentions that Driscoll was a veteran of the plumbers when Max was still a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Driscoll here is older than Grandpa Max.
Yep.
I'm not sure how much. They don't specifically say how much. And I mean, we'll see Driscoll again later on in a later show, so that kind of throws a wrench into how old he is exactly.
Well, we don't know too much about his nature. For all we know, he could just be a cyborg or his consciousness transferred into an android or something. We don't know really.
Yeah. Yeah, and what is it? Yeah, and we get like the whole backstory on basically what Driscoll wants from the plumber base at Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
And it's what they call is minus energy. That I think they say it has like it's really powerful, but it's unstable, so they couldn't use it. So they locked it away instead.
Yep.
And then also we get another backstory for Driscoll, where he was a former plumber who was stealing alien technology while on the job, so they banished him from the plumbers. Or they exiled him or something.
A different take on having retired from the plumbers.
Yeah. And then obviously Grandpa Max theorized that the reason he's now the Forever King is because when he was kicked out of the plumbers, he must have joined the Forever Knights and then worked his way up through their order until he was their leader. And when you actually look at Driscoll's plan, is like to get a hold of the minus energy and then presumably rule the world. The fact that he was giving orders to Enoch for most of the show and working basically as a behind-the-scenes Emperor Palpatine type character. We can actually look at Enoch's plans as they probably were basically Enoch trying to further the Forever King's goal of getting into the Mount Rushmore plumber base. And when you actually look at the different plans Enoch had, that kind of makes sense. Like getting the ultimate weapon would make getting into the plumber base a little easier.
Absolutely.
Getting hold of the Omnitrix may make that a little easier as well.
Yep.
And the other plan of replacing the president with a robot that takes orders from him, that's probably takes a little more a little more moving around to actually work, because we don't know if the plumbers are a government organization or if they're like completely separate from the government.
I'm thinking they're separate.
There is there is this common trope with supervillains. They come up with a plan, they implement it, it fails, they go on to their next plan. Whereas, this Forever Knight probably has all of these plans going at the same time. Yeah. And we're only seeing them get taken down one at a time because we're seeing it from Ben's point of view. But he's probably come up with all of these plans and he's like, okay, guys, go out and make this happen now.
Yeah. We also have the one little detail I noticed. This Forever Knight ninja robot thing here.
Yep.
There's one part where he pulls out basically Darth Maul's lightsaber.
Yeah.
Except obviously this one's yellow. Yeah, we have obviously because they're villains, they're obviously not gonna work together. Or at least not work well together. So as soon as Ben and Gwen were able to create a small amount of division between them, that just basically it got exaggerated quickly. And yeah, here's where my specific icon of the alien eye guy is first shown. It's in this episode. Who for actually eye guy here actually appears multiple times later on in the, well, not in this show, but like in later shows. So it's not so much a one-off alien. Yeah. Okay, there are a lot of spoilers here. Okay, also, there's one thing that I might have noticed. The Forever King Driscoll, he's actually voiced by the same voice actor as Enoch. Yeah, not much else to say about this episode. There are some nice details about this episode that continue over into the other shows. Where is it? If I go through here. Okay, no, it's not. Yeah, there's one specific part where the minus energy is behind a force field, but it's invisible, and they have to put on goggles to actually see it. That's actually there's a small detail later on in the show when they will actually use that. Well, they'll actually call back to that because there's a later episode where they have something in the plumber base in Mount Rushmore, and they have that same idea with the force field, and then it's invisible unless they're wearing goggles.
Yeah,
but that won't be until a lot later. I like the fact that they actually pay attention to stuff like that. Oh yeah, I also have the in the first part of this two-part episode or two-part story, when they're in the elevator and they start and Rojo cuts the wires and they start falling, and Ben uses Diamond Head to put both his arms in either side of the elevator wall and then stop the elevator. I noticed that Odo from Deep Space Nine does the same thing in one episode.
Yeah.
I don't remember what season it was, but I do recall him doing that. Any other interesting details that you noticed or anything else you want to say about this episode?
Nope.
Okay, let's... Final episode, Goodbye and Good Riddance. Now this one is out of continuity. This one's the second What If episode.
Yeah, and that's the only indicator that that's the case is because you get the whole comic book, start and end storyline, whatever. And in retrospect, I'm wondering if that's just because, the writers are like, well, we don't know if Ben 10 is going to continue after this, if we're going to get another season, what we're going to do. So let's give a possible, continuation or something like that.
Yeah. And one thing I immediately noticed about this, that's the same animation. That dog is the same animation model that we've seen in a couple other episodes. It's not the same dog that we've seen in other episodes, but it's the exact same animation
Sure.
model.
Sure.
Also, this is the first instance we get of Ben having a pet dog.
Yep. Well, because we haven't actually seen his home life before.
Yeah.
You know, so we get the introduction of his father, his mother. We know what their relationship is to Grandpa. We also get the names of Gwen's parents. So we basically know how that whole family tree looks now.
Yeah. And we'll know more later on, because later show Alien Force will actually show Gwen's parents.
Okay.
And obviously we'll actually see more of the extended family. We won't see this dog again though, for some reason. I think somewhere in like a trivia note or something saying that apparently Ben's parents sent the dog off to a farm to live there or something.
Which is, of course, a joke about what happens when a dog dies. They usually tell the kid, "Oh, we sent him to a farm where he can live with other dogs for."
Okay, yeah, because that little detail is not in any episode.
Right.
It's literally only in a behind the scenes like creator interview type thing.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a little bit of a joke, because that's what that's one of the old it's like, yeah, I've got a girlfriend that lives up in Canada. You know, it's the same kind of thing. It's oh, your dog got old, so we sent him to a retirement community where he could live with a bunch of other old dogs. No, it's
yeah,
the dog died is basically what they're saying.
Yeah, and also we have Ben's father does not know about Grandpa Max being a plumber. I mean, he assumes like he's like an actual plumber, not a secret agent.
I did like that reference. Oh, was he telling you all kinds of plumbers stories? How did you know about that? But he means like literally plumber. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, because he's not going to tell him the truth.
Right.
And then Ben even says, well, maybe if you told him about this, you would have a better relationship. He's like, it's too late. No, it's not too late. And it's like, now he knows that Ben can turn into all these aliens. Yeah. And, you've been a plumber, a different type of plumber all this time.
So the other nice thing is, now having seen his father, okay, you see the father's there next to Ben. We have earlier in the season seen what Max looked like as a child. You see that family resemblance among all the men,
Yeah, because Grandpa Max had 2 sons, I think. Obviously, the other son would be Gwen's father.
Right.
Although later on we will learn that Ben and Gwen have another cousin who presumably is related to somebody else. I'm assuming Grandpa Max must have had 3 kids or something. Well, it's never confirmed. It's just sort of...
it's never. It can get very convoluted, because technically, it could be a different grandfather. Excuse me. It could be like a mother's parent, or it could also be that when they say cousin, at what level is that cousin? Because technically, if Max has a brother, that would be their great uncle, right? And that great uncle has kids. Those would be their cousins too, but they would be far more removed.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't learn about any family members like too far out from the main family.
Right.
And the other cousin that Ben and Gwen have is around the same age as them. Although we won't meet her until like multiple shows from now.
Sure.
Yeah. So this episode has Vilgax's return from the Null Void, with no explanation as to how he got out.
Right.
He just appears. And he attacks Ben while he's at home, because summer vacation has now ended, and he's like now starting school again. I do like the bit at the end when Cash and JT see Ben transform into an alien. His secret is basically out at that point.
Right.
Like everyone knows that he can transform into the aliens that they've been seeing on the news all summer.
Right. And this isn't the first time that we've gotten this indication that the aliens that he becomes have been seen by the public, and there is a kind of celebrity element to that.
Yeah. And there's one thing that I noticed when Ben actually returns home, and he goes into his room and he has to clean up his room. I actually noticed on the wall there is a poster of what looks like Optimus Prime.
Oh,
obviously it doesn't look exactly like him, and it's never actually named for what I presume to be copyright reasons.
sure.
It's like very clearly meant to look like Optimus Prime.
Yep.
And also we have you were gonna say?
What I was going to say is, for the overall story here, we have an alternate story here of what happens to Ben. This was, like I said, I felt like this was a cap that they were putting on the series in case it didn't continue, so that you could imagine the story does continue. The summer ends, he goes home. His adventure finds his family, and he's got to reveal himself. So now his identity becomes public, and you get the impression there would be a progression, an evolution of his adventures, which you could also see tying into the future storyline you see, where he is known as a hero and begins to be revered and a bit of a celebrity and whatnot. But are we to believe, though, that this is not how it actually ends up going? This story is a side jaunt or something like that?
Yeah, this episode is a side. It takes place in like its own corner of the continuity, I suppose you would call it. Because this episode's because Vilgax here appears with no explanation of how he got out of the null void. We will actually meet Vilgax later on in one of the movies, and there will be no reference to this episode moving forward. Because obviously at the end of this episode, Ben's secret is out. Everyone knows who he is at that point. But when Alien Force starts, it's like no one knows that he's a hero.
Gotcha.
Because although we do have the added detail of Alien Force is going off of like 5 years after Ben has removed the Omnitrix. And then Alien Force will start with Ben getting the Omnitrix back out again and putting it on again. So after we've watched the movies, then it will be a 5-year skip of Ben just being a normal kid again. Because Ben does at least keep the Omnitrix until age 11. And because during Alien Force, Ben's parents learn that he's an alien, which obviously, if this episode was in continuity, then that would be a contradiction. But considering this one's a what if situation, that means that this episode does not contradict later episodes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And also, Vilgax just completely destroys their house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did like that line about, well, on the plus side, your mom did want to remodel the kitchen.
I also noticed that Ben's dog recognized him even though he was in alien form.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be too big a surprise because I mean dogs kind of don't always go by visual cues. You know, they go by smell, they go by other sense.
Oh, hey, Mr. Matchstick.
Oh, how's it going? We were just talking about you earlier in the stream.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry, we'll get to Alien Force, but there are some stuff in the middle first. So yeah, there's also a couple moments of dramatic irony in this episode where Ben's being chased by the drones and he turns into Diamond Head, and then and Cash and JT like make fun of him, saying like the drones wouldn't go for Ben, or like they wouldn't no, I think it's they're trying to figure out where Ben is, and they say he's probably hiding under the bleachers. And it's like obviously the characters aren't aware that Ben is actually the alien fighting the robots at that moment.
And then what got me is when they did find out that Ben was the aliens, and he put them into the tree by their knickers. I expected that it was unspoken or it was something done off camera, but it's like, you tell anybody about this and I'll do something worse. But then like the teacher seemed to know about it, everybody else seemed to know about it. It's like,
well, because he was like, well, I figured since my secret's already out, what the hell?
But that's why he hung them on the tree by their knickers, because they had done that to him way back.
True. Yeah, at the very start of the first episode.
Yeah, but it's like apparently they told everybody, "Oh, he's the aliens."
I think everyone like saw when Vilgax was attacking the town, and I think everyone saw Ben transform into an alien. I know the episode only showed Cash and JT seeing that, but I think everyone in town saw. That's why at the end, when the teacher and the other students were like looking at Ben, when Dr. Animo and a couple of mutants were running through the streets, and the teacher's like, Ben, don't you think it's time for an early break?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, other people could have seen it and been like, "That's Ben," you know.
Yeah, made the connection. Yeah, and what else? Okay, that's about everything that I have on this final episode. So now that we're now finished with the original show, we're not going to move directly onto Alien Force yet because we still have some Ben 10 related stuff in the middle to talk about, and that would be.
I'm guessing the next one is Secret of the Omnitrix.
Yes, the next you go Secret of the Omnitrix, then Destroy All Aliens, and then Race Against Time, and they're all made for TV movies. So we'll be talking about those three movies
next.
Let
me make sure I got that. It's Omnitrix, then All Aliens, and then Race Against Time.
Yes, that's the order.
Okay.
Now I'm guessing since that's only 3 movies, we might actually be able to talk about them in the following week. But that depends if you want to like leave it just a week for the 3 movies.
Okay, Omnitrix, All Aliens, Race Against Time. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I'm just putting them in order because that's not necessarily the order they came out in, is it?
Yeah, because Destroy All Aliens came out in 2012.
Okay. And then I'm guessing Alien Swarm takes place at some point later on after.
Yeah, that takes place in between season 2 and 3 of Alien Force.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we don't. That's only the one movie. We don't have to worry about that right now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, I'm all set.
Yeah. So this is. Are we gonna do something else next week and then do the movies, or are we going to go like straight into talking about the movies next week?
It's up to you. I actually already have the movies ready to go, so I haven't watched them yet, obviously, but
Yeah.
I have access to them now.
Yeah, because it's only 3 movies. There's a lot less to watch, so I feel like we will be able to get through those within a week rather than waiting 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I think if next week we then talk about the 3 movies, and then the week after that something else.
Okay.
Yeah, so everyone stay tuned, because next week we'll be talking about the movies Secret of the Omnitrix, Destroy All Aliens, and Ben 10 Race Against Time. But,
Yep.
But later on we have Geeky Geezers.
Yep. Later tonight we'll over on Age of Boomers channel, Geeky Geezers. That'll be 8:00 Central Time, and yeah, it's been a week. Let me tell you. We started talking on Friday night on my channel a little bit about the news related to Kathleen Kennedy. We will have to touch on that again. Basically, that's kind of superseding all other news related to Star Wars, Lucasfilm, and even Indiana Jones. So
yeah.
So tune in for that.
Yep. Be sure to come to visit Agent Boomer's channel later today.
Yep. And then later in the week on Tuesday over on Mr. Matchstick's channel for Cultural Fortress, where we talk about a number of different
Agent Boomer's
franchises.
The one who's been swapped out, isn't it?
Yes. I actually don't even remember who the lineup is, but we talk
Schooner
about
Tuner is the other one who's coming in instead.
Exactly. We talk about different topics, oftentimes some franchises and movies and shows that you might not remember or might not have ever heard of, but are worth checking out simply because either because they're older or because they've flown under the radar, have been untouched by the modern trend of SJW corruption.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here, and have a good rest of the weekend.
Yep. Take care, everyone.
Bye.